And, and ladies and gentlemen, and our distinguished guests in person and online, and good afternoon. And I'd like to remind all of you to turn off your mic during the lecture. And I'm today's host, Zheng Yudi, and I'm a teacher from the College of Architecture and Planning in Fujian University of Technology. And now I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all of you to this highly anticipated academic conference. And it is with great pleasure that we have the opportunity to share invaluable insights and experiences from Professor Wang Jingjing and Dr. Puteri Fitriaty, editors of renowned journal International Review for Spatial Planning and Sustainable Development. So before we get into today's lecture, and I'd like to make a brief introduction of our journal, which is the only international journal in the spatial planning and sustainable development in East Asia, and focusing on the spatial planning as the entry point for sustainable development from the community to the city and to the urban agglomeration. And the journal focuses on the entire life cycle of spatial planning and design, with sections covering but not limited to planning strategy and thinking, planning analysis and simulation, and planning the design implementation and planning evaluation. So our first speaker, Professor Wang Jingjing, who is the editor of this journal, gave us a lecture titled Tips on Writing and Submitting Research Articles of Case Studies, and she will share her experience and tips about writing a good case study article and provide specific recommendations to assist authors in preparing high-quality submissions. Now I'd like to give the floor to Professor Wang.
Okay, good afternoon, my dear attendees, authors, and I'm glad to have our authors and readers here in today's lecture. Today is one of our editorial series lecture, and me and Puteri will share our experience about the writing and submitting of case study articles and literature reviews. So it's glad here today to be in the Fujian University of Technology here, to have all the students and teachers here for this lecture. And here, I think I'm going to share my screen and start the content. Wait a minute. And I'm going to share the screen. Can you see? No? Can you see the slide? My PowerPoint?
Not yet.
Okay.
Yes, it's already come up.
Okay, so can you all see my slide now? Yeah. Okay. This is today my lecture about my experience on writing and submitting research articles of case studies. So first of all, please allow me to introduce about our journal, IRSPSD, i.e. International Review for Sustainable Planning and Development, which has been indexed by Emerging SCI, Scopes, Engineering Village, GeoBase, and others. And it is now evaluated by the Scopes at the Q2 level in urban study, both urban studies and geography planning and development in two fields. And about the content of our journal, we now have 4 main sections which concern about different stages of urban planning. As you can see, we care about the different stage from the first planning strategies and design concepts, then to planning analysis and simulation, and then come to its implementation and the planning assessment. And also we have sometimes irregular sections, like we will have guest editors to help us organize, who invite authors to give papers to special section about a special topic. And we will also invite some experts to give their comments on a special issue, that is the expert perspectives. And today I'm going to give this lecture from my experience. Sorry, seems there's no change to my slide, but
It's okay. It's okay.
我播放的。播放我可能卡动画呀。
已经可以了。
我可能会卡动画呀。Wait a minute because my slide seems cannot play. About no. It is correct right now.
It's okay.
Yeah, I think it's correct now. And let's come back to our introduction. Just now, I introduced about our journal, IRSPSD, and the content in it. And later, I want to introduce about myself. For me, I have 5 years of experience of being an editor in our journal. So I have the rich experience in academic article writing, reviewing, translating, and also am familiar with submitting and proofreading. And also, I am familiar with how to managing a journal and submitting process. And on the other side, I have also the experience of being a reviewer for academic journals. And also I was authors for different research papers. So today's lecture will from both an editor perspective and an author perspective. And I hope today's lecture can provide you with more information about how to write and submit a good case study article, because case study article is a common type of research article. So most of you, I believe, can produce qualified case study articles. And for many students and researchers, maybe it is just difficult for you to begin to give the first start. So I hope my lecture today will give you a motivation to take a step forward and then to submit your article for international journals. And hopefully my advice will help you to avoid some unnecessary mistakes when you're submitting your paper. And this lecture is divided into 3 parts. That is, what is a case study and what makes a good case study article. And then I will give tips on how to submit your case study article to journals. So we want to make it clear before you write an article, what is a case study? A case study is a detailed study of a specific subject, such as a person or group or place, phenomenon. So case studies are commonly used in the field of our journal, like urban studies and geography or spatial planning. And the case study articles can be I'd say, relatively easy for many scholars to produce because it will happen in any stage of your research. And they're good choice for you if you are creating thesis or dissertation or doing a long-standing research. Case study are always an important step. And as the thesis of substance article, a case study can be defined as an extensive study about a person or a group of people or unit, which is aimed to generalize over several units. And for our field, I think a person can be replaced to a design or a place planning like this. Here's depend on the writing, cases can be classified into 3 patterns. The first one is to use a single case plus factor analysis. Paper like this, they also will divide a single case into different parts according to your research question. And then they also can analyze and summarize the characteristics of various aspects of case. And each section can contain a simple process analysis. And the next one is also widely used, that is single case plus cross analysis. And studies of this pattern often involve changes or evolution by time. It's always changed through a timeline. So the studies are often care about changes over periods. The case can be divided into several different parts along with a timeline, and the author can summarize its characteristics in each stage. And the last one may be less frequently seen, but it is very useful. That is multi-cases with factor analysis. In this kind of paper, author will do some analysis to each cases one by one, a group of cases one by one from different aspects. This analysis will be based on the research questions. And then summarize will be made based on the characters of each case from different aspects, different angles, and then make conclusions. So talking about the different types of case study, and to design a case study, it usually involves qualitative methods, but it is not exclusively because quantitative methods are also used here. And the case studies are good for describing and comparing, evaluating and understanding different aspects of a research question or research problem. So a case study can be appropriate for research design when you want to gain concrete, contextual, in-depth knowledge about a specific real-world subject. And for our journal, we also receive many case study articles and we also published many. And here's what should be included in a case study. You should have a specific research gap or objective to conduct the case. And you should define a single case for your study or identifying a group of cases. And as I just mentioned, data is needed, no matter it is qualitative or quantitative. And also you need to make analysis within a case or analysis across different cases. That is what should be contained in a case study. Of course, for an important pattern of literature and the articles, there are many great values of case studies because a good case study can reflect how a planning strategy is conducted and how the design concept will be carried out in different nations or regions. And the research gap can be seen from massive case studies if you have ever read enough papers about it. That is what we call the trend analysis of future prediction. And you can also see the level of planning practice if you have read original case studies, because they can be indicated by them. And also you can do some data extraction or data mining through the case studies and summarize some hotspots or predict the future trend from the cases. And here I do a little bit data dragging about it. Here we can see this is the keywords analysis from our journal's publication. We can see the topic, the keywords show more and more topics have been increasing ever since 2020, indicating that our journal care about more topics around people's life. And see this one, the first one, the transit-oriented development TOD principle. I think it is always widely used in many countries and regions, so it has a constant concern for it. And it is interesting to notice the sustainable development and the sustainability is also of great importance, because maybe because of our journal's topic concern more about sustainable development. And maybe it is also related to our planners will concern more about the sustainable development strategies proposed by sustainable development goals proposed by the United Nations. So how to achieve the SDGs with planning methods are considered by planners and scholars. And it's interesting to notice that the red bar, COVID-19 here, we can see its experience and breakthrough after 2020, because we all know scholars care more about this after 2020. Since this year, it is a big issue in public. However, when it's come to 2023, it is less attractive. Well, we can see an increasingly interest about the word travel. Travel here has an increasing breakthrough in the year 2023. I think that is because it's come to the end of COVID-19. And when it's come to the end, people will welcome a revival of tourism. So traveling back to the hot topic for urban study area, because we would care about how to use planning strategies to revive the tourism. And also use other tools can visualize the trend. I will talk less here. That is generated by the site space. And the darker the circle is, the more hot topic is in the recent years. As we can see in this figure, the words like design or urbanization and adaptation are less likely to be studied in the recent 2 or 3 years. Well, here we can see health and climate change, land use, and space syntax are becoming more and more popular in the recent years. And we can see the relationship between benefits and health and park, working, open spaces. Here indicates one choice, that is, people are caring more about how to use the existing public open spaces to provide social well-being and benefits to people to create a healthy city or healthy community. After all this, I believe you will have an idea about what is a case study and how important it is. And my second part of it is about what makes a good case study. So from my editors will be given by the order of, in the order of article structure. and I will give my suggestions in 4 sections and given examples from high citation articles from our journal. First of all, I want to introduce, I think, the first important point for making a good case study, that is a clear, specific, and distinctive topic or theme. In this case, a topic should be clearly displayed in your title and the entire content of the article. Because we need to make your article concerned on a special topic that can attract readers and the reviewers to your paper. So the topic should worth your research and be meaningful for theoretical research or for practice. And in your paper, the study aims, the objectives, and the discussions should be centered on the topic or your theme. And this topic should be obviously shown in the title and keywords and abstracts of your paper. And talking here, I will give a bit more about how to write good titles and abstract. Here I give 2 comparative examples. You can see which one do you think is a better title for you among these 2. Well, for me, I think I will choose the second one because the first one, remote sensing-based design approach in watersheds. It is too general. It is not detailed and doesn't give enough information. If you want to write it in depth or want to write it more comprehensive, I think that is maybe a book rather than an article with this title. However, in the second one, we can tell the case, which case were used for the study, and we can see what type of article it is. And we can also see the scope, what care about in this study. We can see it care about landscape patterns, and the object may be in mountainside ecotourism. And titles like this are more easier for researchers to search on the internet because it reads in effective keywords in the title. That is what I think important about to make an important, effective title. And here I also give some positive examples from our journal for case studies. But I'm not going to say you had to add the word a case study in your article. That is not so required. But you have to let the reader see what is your object and what is your scope and methodology and type of your article from the words you use. So I want to emphasize an effective title should be concise and informative in content. You can use subtitles, but I suggest a title, including a subtitle, no more than 20 words to make it more concise. And to level up, if you can use English well, and you can try to make your title more interesting and eye-catching, like the examples I give here. You can use a short sentence or a metaphor or a question, a description to make your title more striking, to attract more readers to be interested in your paper. And here I give the 4 examples from our journals. You can try if you can level up the use of English. And if you cannot, just confirm your title can meet the ordinary requirements about concise and informative in content. That is enough. I also want to talk about how to make an abstract for your case study, because an abstract is the essence of a paper, but you cannot simply understand it as a short version of your paper. can be seen as a summary and a way to advertising your research. Usually, an abstract should be a single paragraph of about 200 words or 200 to 300 words, maybe, depends on the journal's requirement. What should be included in the abstract are as follows. You should write the research background and objectives, your methods, your key results, and for your argument, and what's your important conclusion here. Here is about how to write it in more details. This is logically related and you can remember it, but just remember, don't to separate your abstracts one item by one item. Do not use numbers or different items like background, blah, blah, then methods, blah, blah. That is not allowed. You should integrate all the content together in one paragraph. There should be an integration. Here, I summarize a 3C principle for your abstract. A good abstract should be concise, clear, and concrete. Concise means you should not use too many words and too long, complicated sentences. And clear means it should be important to reflect what you have done, what your method, what your problem, and your innovation here. This is important for you to be clearly written in your abstract. And concrete is some people maybe cannot achieve it, so they just adjust how important your article is. But you have to stand on your context because your abstracts must cover the content in your research. You cannot exaggerate what you have done in your abstract. And the second point I want to mention, important to make a good case study article, is about the structure. And here I will recommend the IMRAD format for you. It is specially recommended. Before I introduce IMRAD format, let us see. Here is the guideline from a top journal in the area of urban planning and landscape. Let's give it a quick look, and we can see the blackboard words about introduction, method, result, discussion, and conclusions. And now let's move to another guidelines from a journal in MDPI. It's quite similar with introduction, materials and methods, results, discussion, and conclusion. And the next one is a journal from elsewhere. We can also see it is quite the same: introduction, material and methods, theory, results, discussion, and conclusions. I think for many of you, this should be a common sense. But in my daily work, there are still many authors who don't have this common sense because they may do not know enough about IMRAD. And today, I want you to remember this format in mind. Let us see what on earth is IMRAD structure or IMRAD format. That is the acronyms for introduction, methods, results, and discussion. And when the D for discussion, it is always a combination of both discussion and conclusion. Let's see this graph. This graph, we can see the methods and results are the central report section in your article. And the introduction and discussion and conclusion section are of great importance here because in these two sections, you will introduce previous studies, your research questions, and you will introduce what have you gained from your study. So this content makes your article like an hourglass model. So please keep this IMRAD format in mind. And later I will introduce in this structure one by one. And for the headings, in AMRAD format, many journals will simply use the words for each section, like the first section, introduction, then methods, results, and discussion for each section. And there will be a few variations can occur, like some journals will use the second section as materials and methods, and some journals will use results and discussion for the results section. That depends. About the introduction, I think many journals have the same convention using the single word introduction as a heading of a section, and so is our journal. For introduction, I do not recommend you to use subheadings here. Maybe it's better for you if you can combine it into an integration. So a good introduction will give the readers a clear overlook for the whole paper. And I suggest you to use 3 to 4 paragraphs for a case study paper to clearly state your study background, your research gap and questions, and your study objectives. In this section, you should introduce why you do this study, what's the cause that make you start this study, and why is your study necessary. And you should introduce the background that renders the problems you study, and you need to solve this question or figure out the reasons for this problem. And by doing this, what is the predicted outcome is expected should be introduced briefly here. And here is the structure of an introduction. It can be divided by right and left to two parts. The first part is about background. Here you can start your introduction about why it's your research demanded. Here you should introduce the status quo, the related researches, and the case you choose for your study. And when you introduce all this, I think the question, the problem in your background will arise. Then you can establish your research questions. That is the primitive mission of the introduction. Here you have to state your study aim and towards your study aim, in what approach will you use to achieve it. And then by using your approach, what effects or outcomes are expected to get. And finally, what can be learned, what can be concluded from your study. And the right part consists a brief frame of your research. That should be a structure of the introduction. And the second part for an article methodology is the highlight of a case study. The headings may vary because in some journals, they use the single word method as heading. And in some other journals, like our journal, we accept materials and methods or methodology. That is all acceptable. In a methodology section, it shouldn't be ignored, because no matter if your research is a case study or it is empirical research or argumentative research, a methodology is very important. So methodology part should also be centered with your research questions and aims we just established in the introduction. And you should introduce how to conduct your methods. You should introduce the entire process of your method and highlight the uniqueness and the innovation here. There are things to be noted because you have to introduce the process of your work. So the framework or the workflow is important to be introduced, and they're better to be visualized in charts or flow diagrams to give readers a comprehensive look for your study, and methods and different steps like this one for a design case. You can see the target, you can see the idea and its respective method to each idea, and what is expected to get. That makes it more easier for readers to understand. Another thing to be noted, because in the section of material and methods, you should introduce the case you choose as your study material. So for scholars in our area, in our field, I suggest to use a map to illustrate your sample case studies. And the map should be simple but accurate. Don't make it too dark, too complicated. It is not so clear to read. And also in the methodology section, you should make enough review on the methods you use, especially when you are translating the method from another language. You have to make it clear what is the correct use of words or phrase. And don't miss any important details in your methods, like how to collect and cluster your data, important items in your questionnaire designing, and what is the way of choosing samples. They're all important to be listed in the methodology sections. And don't forget, any equations should be listed if they are related to your results in the next section. The results section here is my third point I'm going to say about how to make your case study good. It should be logically put and clearly visualized. Results are less various as headings because most journals accept results as a single section, so is our journal. But we will see some authors combine results with discussion into one section. I think this is not widely used. So if you are going to use results and discussion at one section, please double check the requirements for the journal you are submitting to. And in general, a results section will include following elements. First, you have to give a very short introductory context that repeats your research question and help to understand your results. And then you should give a systematic description of the main findings of a logical order. And then you should report on the results of each stage from different aspects. And finally, if you have other important secondary findings, such as secondary outcomes or subgroups analysis, you can add them here. But if the result section is too long, you can add it in a supplementary or appendix of your article. That depends. And one thing important for results is to visualize your result. To use visualized elements include figures, charts, maps, and tables, of course. That will help to summarize and illustrate what your findings are about. And I think for many editors, visualization is always better than just listing items and piling up data and writing text. So ways to visualize are not limited to traditional ways, and it is recommended to combine your outcome with maps of your study area, because in our field, it is more easier for readers to see the trend, the difference, if you can using a map. And you should also notice the quality and size of your figures. That is always required by journals. Talking about the way of visualize a figure, we can see the examples from our journal. For a design case, you can use a graph to show the different steps of a design case and what's the different aspects, what's your details in the design. And you can use visualizing ways to show the results of your modeling and the simulations of your case study. That is more visible for readers to see. And when you come to data analysis, you can use these figures to show, we can see the cluster of different data in different types. This is a direct way to show your data rather than just a table. And for all the general descriptive statistics, I think simple bar charts or line charts or other quite frequently seen visualized elements can be used here for descriptive statistics. And if you are doing a modeling or simulation, you can use scattergram or line charts for your prediction and regression. So visualize help a lot to improve the quality of your paper. But things to be noted is that when you are using visualized element for your results, you should confirm this element should be cited in text and numbered in order. And the style of figure caption and table captions are always required in the author guidelines of a journal. And also, figures and tables should be able to stand on its own without text. That means a reader can simply know what you want to express without reading too many texts. It should cover enough information to help the readers to understand what is indicated in the figure. And each part of the result should be logically related, and you should echo and emphasize the theme of your study in your result. Sometimes for authors, it is important to cut your result down because it should be centered on your topic. So if you have precious data that is not so related to your topic, you should just remove it. Now we are come to the end of the paper, and also about the case study writing. It will be an important part, discussion and conclusion. I will combine these two together because different journals have different requirements about this section. But anyway, this part should be in-depth and meaningful. For some journal, they will care more about discussion section, and if a conclusion section is not mandatory required. But in some journals, they will use a summary or conclusions sections instead. And for some journals, they can be combined together into one section. And for our journal, we accept both. You can use discussion, conclusion as two separate sections, and you can just combine them together into one section as discussion and conclusion into one end section. That depends on how much your content is in this section. And if you are going to use the conclusion for your end, the IMRAD structure will make a little change to IAMRDC structure, which stands for Introduction with your study aim, and then methods, result, discussion, and conclusion. It is a more complete format for your article. And to ensure your submission, I just suggest you to read the guidelines more. Anyway, the structure and content of the final part of your case study are not usually the same, but from my aspect, discussion is necessary for a case study because sometimes you had to make discussion based on possible conditions that haven't been studied in your research. And just as I mentioned, our journal accepts both style that contains on what you have in your paper. Actually, a conclusion section will include this important point. In this section, you should restate your hypothesis or your study questions and major findings here. And then you should tell the readers what contributions so far has your study made to the extinct research. And then you should highlight any limitations of your study and state future directions of your research, that is future works. And then you can make your recommendations based on the status. And many authors will forget about these two items, limitations and future works. You cannot just report how important, how necessary your works are. There will be limitations and you will have your future works to overcome the limitations. So these 2 points are very important. Now I have introduced the first 2 parts about my lecture. My last part about how to writing and submitting your case study is from my aspect to give you some tips on the process of submission from my editorial work experience. And here we can see I also have 4 points for you. We will see them one by one, what my tips are. The first tip is to suggest all the authors to develop the habit of reference management, because in my daily work, I can see many authors still using the traditional way of data managing, use Word and the typing and copying that is not effective at all. You have to add reference at the end of your article because it is a way to show your respect to previous works. But how many references is my suggestion is you should cite it no less than 25 articles. And you can, if your article is not simply case study, the requirement should increase more. And the management tools I recommend is like Mendeley or Note Express or EndNote, like what we use now, and Editorial. Or you can even use LaTeX to replace Word. Using these tools can significantly help you to increase your working efficiency in your research works, because you have to try different journals in your research, and if you all do the references manually by hand, that is so ineffective. So a good reference management tools can help you avoid mistakes, and you can simply change the format of your references by only a click. And also, besides these advantages, a good document tools can help you to do data mining and the literature analysis, like what I showed just before in the first part. And there are also 2 points I had to mention. To avoid plagiarism, you should not simply copy the information you cited or just state it in a different structured sentence. For example, the original word is I like it. You cannot simply change it into it was liked by me. You had to write in your own words to avoid plagiarism. And at last, I strongly recommend for authors to cite several papers from the journal you submit to. And it's the same for our journal. If you want to submit to our journal, I recommend you to cite at least 3 or more papers from our journal. I think this is an unwritten rule for many publishers because if you want to submit to the journal, you have to get enough information about it. You should learn about it because the journal should be in the scope of your study. So there is no way you can cite nothing from the journal. There should be something related to your work. And citing some published papers show your respect to the journal you submit to and show you have enough knowledge about the journal. And the third tip I want to give about edit is the language editing, because if the poor English can be seen in the paper, it will frustrate or irritate your reviewers or editors, because poor English is not so respectful. However, I know some of you maybe have the fear to write in English. Maybe you are not so well at English writing, but I have to encourage you to overcome your fear for language difficulties, because most authors in our journal are not native English speakers too. And for all the academic journal in the world, there are many authors from different countries. They are all not English speakers. And also, if you are not confident for your English writing, many publishers can provide you professional language editing service for authors, and so do our journal. So if you look for their website, you can see the language editing service. It is maybe helpful for you to increase the quality of your paper. And if you are confident in your English and you would like to do the translation on your own, you have to make sure the terminology, the words are accurately and correctly used. As I mentioned, you can refer to previous papers to make sure what are the correct words. And I want to mention 2 points as the last is to avoid repeating the same word or phrase again and again in your writing. That is a frequently seen problem in speech, in talking. But when you are writing, some people will make these mistakes. Repeating the same word can also be very obvious in your writing, so try to overcome this bad habit. And of course, you can't write in oral language. That will make your article informal. This is what I suggest about language editing. And the last tips I'd like to give is to get as much information as possible for your target journal. When you are well prepared for your case study and you want to submit your article, before you do this, before you click the submitting button, you should ask yourself the 3 following questions. What are the aims and skills of this journal? Will your research be covered by a section or a column of your target journal? And have you read their requirements about submissions and adjusted your article as they required? These 3 questions are related to the daily process of editorial work. Let's see. Here's the process of a submission we'll go through. First, you submit a paper through the system, and then your paper will be firstly checked by an editor. That is what we call desk check. And then if your paper has completed the desk check, it will be sent to peer review. Normally, it will be reviewed by 2 or 3 reviewers. And if the reviewers have given you comments, and the comments are just there are not too many differences, it will be sent to the editor-in-chief for final decision for your paper. But if 2 reviewers give totally different comments, it will be sent to another round of review. And when it comes to the editor decision, most papers will not be accepted on the first round. So it will be sent back to the revision for author to revise it. And when the revision is finished, you should submit your revised paper again, and it will go through another round like this. So what I talked about, the 3 questions, is involved with the second stage, desk check, because a first impression is important here. If your topic is not relevant to the journal's scope and aims, and if your type of article is not accepted by the journal or by its columns, it will leave a bad impression to the editor. So to avoid being rejected, you should make your first impressions good and make your paper well structured and formatted to leave a good impression for editors and to reviewers. And I also have some small tips for helps you make enough preparation for submitting and reviewing process. Before you submit your article, you should also prepare a cover letter for the editor-in-chief or for managing editor who will see your paper. And you should note the details in your letter and don't let them see it is also for another journal. That is not respectful. And after the editor decision, after you receiving comments from other reviewers and editors, you should revise your paper according to the comments within the required time period and don't exceed it. And also, when you are doing the revision, you should prepare a response to answer the problems and point out what you have done to fix the problems pointed out by reviewers. In your response, the comment given by the reviewers should be listed one by one. And even if you are not agree with the reviewer's comment, you have to say why you are not think so. And finally, when you submit your revision, you can express your appreciation to the reviewers and editors, especially to reviewers, because the reviewers in the last round is very likely to review your articles in the second round. So remember to be respectful. And I believe after all, your hard works will pay off in the way to write and submit your paper to submit to an international journal. And I strongly suggest you to read more and learn from the previously published articles. Today, I give some examples of our high citation papers and that are of good quality. I listed them here for you to read. You can cut a screenshot here and search for them. They are for online free reading and downloading. So I think this will be helpful for you if you can read them more. And of course, I encourage you to cite other papers from our journal. So that will help us to make together progress. And at the end of my lecture, I will leave the way for you to contact us. You can scan our QR code to follow our WeChat platform, or you can follow our Twitter. In our WeChat platform, we will constantly share our latest information or good quality papers, or share about our journals and other journals, good articles about spatial planning. And of course, we're sincerely looking forward for your future submissions. And as for today's lecture information, I think the recorded video will be uploaded later on the following website. And if you have questions to communicate with us, you can use the WeChat platform or Twitter to communicate with us. And we welcome your submitting your case studies to our journal. And so that is end of my today's lecture. Thank you for your listening and your patience. I hope you can succeed in your writing and submitting process in the future, and I hope one day we will communicate more with you in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor Wang, for sharing with us your experience with detailed explanation and intuitive examples of how to write a case study from an author's perspective and how to make it stand out and earn favor with the editor's perspective. So I believe it will be much beneficial to all our researchers. And thank you again. And now let's move on to the Q&A session. For our audience in the Skype meeting, just if you have any questions, just feel free to turn on your mic. And for our researchers in the Tencent meeting, you can type your question in the chat box and we will collect your questions.
Oh, I see a hand raising here. Do you have any questions? You can type it into the chat box or just speak.
Hi, dear everyone. Many thanks, dear Professor Wang, for your valuable and beneficial presentation.
I remember you have published article in our journal, right?
Yes, thank you. Do you hear me?
Maybe you can type your question in the chatting box here.
Many thanks, dear Professor Wang, for your valuable and beneficial presentation. I have a question. Usually the case study is the main research methodology of our papers. In this case, how we can decide to submit it as a case study paper or research paper? Because in some journals, these types are distinct. Thank you.
I just not hear your complete questions. Can you repeat it again? Because I turned down the voice. Can you repeat your question again?
Yes, of course. Do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear.
Thank you. Many thanks for your valuable and beneficial presentation. My question is, usually the case study is the main research methodology for our papers. In this case, how we can decide to submit it as a case study paper or a research paper? Because in some scientific journals, these types are distinct. Thank you.
Yes, yes, actually it's distinct, it differs from different journals. I think that depends on how your papers are structured and what your method are used. If you care more about a case and how to analyze it from different parts, as I just mentioned, there are 3 patterns of case studies. If any one of you can be included into the case study, I think it can be classified into a case study article. But I see in many journals, there are just not so many options. There are just review, comments, articles, right? So in this kind of requirement, I think you can just choose research article that is enough. And that depends on the detailed requirements of journal.
Thank you so much.
Okay, the professor asked about when you get submitting a paper to our journal, how long will it be able to submit your article? If it is not accepted, how long can you submit to another article, to another journal, right? If you are going to submit it to another journal, I suggest, because for many international academic journals, there will be a, if you are not accepted, you will receive a reject letter or revision letter. Anyway, you will receive a decision about it. So you generally saying you should wait for the result turning back. It is not allowed to submit your articles to several journals together at one time.
之后有没有对同一作者有投稿的时间的间隔限制？
After your paper is published, will there be any requirement to a time interval for a reviewer to publish? There is no requirements like this. No such requirements.
间隔它可以，如果有文章
So if you have different papers of different topics, for example, your research can produce several papers, right? You can have several papers. You think this journal is good. You want to submit several papers to this journal. That is allowed.
谢谢。
So is there any other questions? If there's no any other questions, we should move on to our second lecture. So our second lecture is titled How to Write a Literature Review Article by Dr. Puteri, who is the senior lecturer in Tadulako University, Associate Editor of International Review for Spatial Planning and Sustainable Development, reviewer for several international journals. So from this lecture, we will explore the vital role of literature reviews in the research process and learn the quality expected in manuscripts for acceptance in reputable international journals. So Dr. Puteri will offer guidance to us to avoid potential pitfalls and enhance the quality of our articles before submission. So now welcome Dr. Puteri. Sorry, we can't hear you. Oh,
Hello, can you hear me now?
yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for the introduction. So maybe I should start my presentation. Can you see my screen?
No, no. Only see a blank.
I have the connection. Can you see my screen?
No.
I think I have a problem here.
Maybe you need to share the whole screen.
Maybe Puteri, you can try to share the window rather than the page. The desk window.这里这个共享好像跟我那不太一样哎。我只有前两项。We can see your window now.
Do you see my screen now?
Yeah. We can see the window. Your screen, you're sharing.
My PPT, are you seeing my PPT right now?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm sorry for the technical issue. I'm having, let's say, some problematic line here. And as mentioned, my title is How to Write a Letter Review Article. Maybe some part of this presentation is almost the same with Jean, because we are trying to, how to say, it's not like we teach our audience, but sometimes it is forgotten by all of the, how to say, not all, by some authors that this should be how we write an article so it can be published in a scientific journal. So here is my today's topic. Can you see my screen right now? I'm sorry, I should, how to say, I should make sure.
Yes, we can see.
Okay, thank you. So the first, why literature review? The second is what is a scientific literature review? The third is when should the literature be conducted? And then where does the literature review perform and how to write a scientific one? So why should we writing a scientific literature review? So as we know, when we are doing a research, then we, how to say, making some, not some, it's like so many background research, and then so we read so many literature, and then it's like wasting our time, something like that. So why should we write what we research? So we don't have to wasting our time. So this activity, we should write it in a scientific literature review. In our journal, as let's say introduced by Jean, that we have a little amount of literature review paper. So how to say, we encourage our authors and to write a scientific literature review. When you having your research. So why we doing literature review? As we know, it's to find the latest trend and uncovering the research gap. And it's also sharpen our critical mapping on certain theories or literatures that have been published so far. And also, we should, in literature review, we are sharpening our critical thinking and critical analysis. The purpose of literature review is also when we choosing or comparing or modifying the research method, then we can try to write a literature review. So, so our effort should be paid off by publishing our work in so many literature reading in a review work. And also, we can provide a new scientific insight and helping other researchers by our literature review and publishing it, and people can read, oh, this is the latest trend in this certain topic. The second is, what is scientific literature review? So here we will be talking about, it's not like definition, it's how to say, when we doing a literature review, as we can, we all know, because we are doing that before conducting the full research, how to say, research work. So we are doing a literature review. It is an evaluation of research work available on the specific academic theme under investigation by other researchers that have been published so far. So what is the purpose anyway for us to writing a literature review? It is to first communicate the advancement in scientific knowledge, and we must providing alternative future work, so not only for us ourselves, but also for other readers. And the second is to save time for the community of scientists, or students, or academic in learning that the not static and ever-changing certain scientific knowledge may be expanded over the time. So we can save the time of our readers from the certain scientific knowledge. Some authors we might reject because they just made a summary of each scientific paper. Scientific literature review is not a summary of each scientific paper, and also not a chronological history in a certain topic area. But how to say, it should be accompanied with the robust critical analysis, and then also accompanied with the evaluation of what you are been doing in your literature, something like that. Okay, and then some literature review has so many types. So the most older one is we call it narrative or traditional literature review, which is established a theoretical framework or focuses on research writing context. This kind of literature review for today's is, I mean, it's been left. I mean, there is not so many this kind of literature review published in a scientific journal. So the second and the most popular one is a systematic review. So this systematic review rigorously examine data and the output of the other scientists to answer the specific research question. So this systematic review might has it provide a highly rigorous type as material resources, and it's bound by restriction in the procedure. So because it's systematic, so there is a procedure followed by it. And the third one is integrative review. So this kind of review builds the new knowledge based on the existing body of literature, following a deductive, logical reasoning and rationalist perspective. So it's either concept-centric, building a new concept, and constructivist, building a new, knowledge, or a theoretical, building a new theory. Okay, and the fourth one is meta-analysis review. This analysis often investigating the output. So many outputs are from selected scholarly publication, and it should be analyzed through a standardized statistical procedure where it can detect the pattern of argumentation and draw direct conclusion from published work. And the next one is bibliometric review. So as you can know, it's very popular now, like what Jin showed in his presentation. So this is a scientific approach targeted at analyzing bibliographic material in quantitative way to identify the trends of prior studies on a specific subject, topic, or discipline. And this kind of bibliometric review often, require a powerful online scientific paper database as the source. So we have to, download a database as which is the popular one is from the Scopus or Web of Science. There is another type of literature review like scoping review, semi-systematic review, which is almost the same as systematic review, but more not constricted with the procedure. And also there is meta-synthesis review, iterative review, interpretative review, and umbrella review and rapid review. This rapid review often, often helps other scholars which have not much time to read a very lengthy literature review. So this kind of helpful, but this kind of rapid review might, miss some information in that. So the third one is, when should we conduct literature review? Time to do it, as we all know. I mean, we all have doing this. So when we should be conducting literature review? The literature review often or always begin from where we want to search the research gap. We want to know the trend of the topic. What topic should I perform? What topic should I research? Something like that. And also, if we have already have the idea, the literature also can provide the tactic or strategy or methodology that should be used to perform this research. So there is literature review before the research and within the research we have to do it. And also sometimes the research of our the full research, full length research, it also needs to have conclusive evidence that we have to put to support our research. Then we are doing a literature review also. When what is the time for the research material? When we are providing literature review works, so it depends on what is your purpose. So a different literature review may have different in purpose. Recent development, like recent development of a smart house or PIPV or as a photovoltaic panel, something like that. Maybe we have to include 5 to 10 years emerged until now. So there is no text limitation, and it depends in our works. So, but some of the journal may be in this year, maybe 2023. So we have to let's say we have to include the paper from 2022, something like that. And when should our literature review work submit? So my suggestion, after you finish it, I mean the finished work, like you already finished it and you review, and also your college review it and you revise it until the most how to say perfect form. So you have to submit it right away. Don't wait until your how to say your topic is out of date, something like that. Okay, and the next one, where does we conduct the literature review? So in a traditional one, we will go to the how to say physical library. We have to borrow the books and something. And I until now I like to read a physical book. So it will be how to say it will be good for our eyes rather than we read it by the computer experience, something like that. But for today's tools, it's difficult for us for the hard copy of the material. So we can use an online database from reputable database source. And sometimes the literature review also needs some international content from magazine or reports or government how to say government act or something like that. So here is the example of database source that we can try to use. The most how to say widely known, and for the general purposes we can use a Google Scholar, which is how to say it's free, not like Scopus. So most of Scopus and Web of Science, we have to pay it. Our institution have to pay it. So some of the, how to say, authors, maybe their institution did not have, how to say, some subscription with Scopus, Science Direct, or Web of Science. And after we downloaded our data of the literature review or materials, we can organize that. So as Jean suggests to our audience, that don't forget to organize and categorize the relevant papers of your research to some of reference manager like Mendeley or EndNote or Zotero or something like that. So it will be easier for you and for us, the editor, to, how to say, to search for your literature review. And it also can be linked by cross-reference easily. So it can be identified like what kind of materials did you put in your paper. The next is how to write it scientifically. This, how to say, I made it short for this topic because Jean is already widely explained how to write a scientific paper. So it's a general rules, I guess, how to write it. But as Jean said, sometimes our authors forgot about that. So don't forget, if we're talking about scientific writing, then the structure should be maintained. So don't forget the structure. So this is the tips before you write. Maybe the same what the Jean told us. Provide a clear statement of your research scope. Don't become too big or it's too small. So if it is too big and there is no focus on our paper, and then be precise in the range of research and the keyword selection. So your keyword selection in a literature review work is very important. Don't be ambiguous, like how to say, related is not the same with correlated, it's not the same. So please choose the keywords for your research, literature research, when you search the relevant literature and when you write it down. And the selected topic should be critically analyzed. And the next one is there's some, we often find some controversy within the different scholars. So we must find what is the controversy. For example, the scholar A and scholar B, they have different opinion, and what is the, you may identify what is this different opinion. Is it because they use the different method, or they use a different approach, something like that, or maybe they have different case study, or they have different has the point of thinking. I mean, sometimes when in our journal, it's usually a quantitative method, so it be objective. And for a qualitative method, sometimes it's subjective, so it may lead to different different things. So, and Our work should have an indication for future research or have a suggestion. From this work, we have so which of the field of this work is potential for future research. It's not, let's say, it's not only for us. So we are not talking about only us, only we ourselves, but we're talking about a scientific community where we have to provide a good quality literature review that might not cannot mislead the readership, so they can continue our research and using our suggestion by to begin their research, something like that. And the structure of the scientific literature, this might be, let's say, presented by Jean. So it should have a short abstract. So this abstract is often easier for us to write an abstract of all of our let's say paper. So this abstract is actually the first thing that people might read. So this abstract should contain of a precise and also solid and how to say express your the value of your writing, because maybe when the readership try to search for this kind of abstract, which is must include keywords, then maybe our reader will be 2,000 viewers or 2,000 readers, and we might find our abstract is not, how to say, it's not informative enough, and then they will stop they will stop reading our how to say our paper. So most of the time is something like that. And also with this short abstract, we can help the readership to, how to say, to decide whether I have to read the full of this paper, or I should, how to say, or this is not related with my research. So something like that. It contain maybe some journal will, how to say, there's a restriction in the abstract. Generally, the abstract, short abstract is include 1,050 till 150 and 200 words, no more than that. And the second is introduction. Introduction, maybe there is many of our authors make an introduction is very lengthy. So we might try to calculate. So our introduction should take how many pages? So it should take, the good one, it should take only 10% of our pages. And the main body may include 80 to 80%, and the conclusion is 50 to 10% of the length of our paper. So this is the abstract. The tips is don't be mysterious with your abstract. So it's kind of, oh, there is a beautiful woman, and then they're using a mask. Is this beautiful or not? It's actually a beautiful woman, and then you didn't provide how to say, a good explanation. I mean, the abstract is not express the whole of your paper, and then people will tend to, oh, it's ugly, so don't read it, something like that. So just be clear. And the abstract should include keywords that potential readers are likely to use in their search. So maybe a popular keyword is, how to say, it's likely to be used. And if you have some, how to say, there's a unique word in your research, then put it there. And maybe it will emerge someday when we are when a researcher, how to say, find, oh, this is how to say, this is the keywords that should be expanded in the future. So please put it in your abstract and your keyword section. And the abstract, actually, the summary of your research topic. It's a summary. It's express the whole body of your topic, and it's include your method. So please include your method. So people will read your abstract and they know what methods are you used in performing this research, this literature review research. And also you have to put the main finding and the conclusion of your review. In this abstract, it is equally important to inform the readership what is the exact content of your review. Don't be ambiguous. So this is the example for our journal. This abstract is acceptable, so that's why this paper is, how to say, is accepted in our journal. And usually this abstract, this kind of abstract will be, how to say, the other journal is also like this. So it indicate our research, what kind of research, like bicycle sharing system, and then it's also, how to say, provide what the aim of the article, and also how to say, they find this there is materials, the method to use. And then there is also the main funding. So for a literature review, this kind of abstract is accepted. So the second one is introduction. In the introduction, you must provide your critical thinking on the work you presented, and how wide is the coverage of your paper, and what is the scope and the relevancy of this literature review with your research, something like that. And the second one is be clear on the contribution of your review. A good paper provide their contribution in a very first paragraph. Sometimes when I discuss with friends and they said, it's very difficult to provide contribution in the abstract, because most people kind of thinking is that in the introduction we have to provide a general condition, and then narrow it down for the specific condition. But in a good paper, we have to provide our readership of a clear, how to say, a clear out of our thinking first, something like that. So why the contribution must be put in a first paragraph, or if we cannot put it in the first paragraph, let's put it in the second paragraph, and don't put it until the end of your introduction. Many journal accept for this, but if you want to write a very, very good paper, please provide the contribution of your review in the first paragraph. The third one is the urgency and purpose of your review should be highlighted. What is it? What is your purpose? If you should put it in your introduction, like what do you want to gain from this literature review? Is it building a new concept or just a research gap? If it is just a research gap, and then it can be an introduction in a case study or full-length paper. How about construction the new knowledge? Is it you construct a new knowledge or providing a recent development on the most sexier topic in the recent years, something like that. So please provide this in an introduction, and we might write it in a very interesting way. And interesting is not mean that you must make a humor in our paper, but I have to say, maybe I cannot make it like that myself, but sometimes when we read a good paper and we enjoy it, this is a very good paper. We like reading a paper like reading a historical book, or like reading how to say, a comic or novel, something like that. It's very cohesive, and there is interlinking in a paragraph. It's like that. So this is the example. I took it from the presentation of Professor Ali Ibrahim. So this is example of the introduction. So it should provide the topic sentence, and then what you will perform, what you will unreveal in your body of text, and then there is a concluding sentence, something. So this is the way, a good way to write an introduction. So here in how to say, in a green one, he provides what he will talk in his body of a paper. So like self-concept, rewards, internal forces, something, and so on, something like that. And it is very important also. So I read so many literature review paper, and many of them is the same. So as a reader, will which paper should I read? Is this paper or is this paper? Is it the same? If it is the same, then I just use this paper to read, and I don't have to read this one, something like that. So it is important to state the difference between your review work and many previous similar review work. So if it is in the same topic, so what is the difference between our literature review with other scholars' works, something like that? Is there any advancement, or is there that being forgotten from the other previous literature review work? So it's like that. So what is the difference? What is the unique of our literature review? If we compare to other similar topic with us. So provide this in introduction. And the last one is, please pay attention to the coherency of your paragraph and systematically write from a broader to specific context. After, in the first paragraph, you explain the contribution of your study. The main body. So for the main body, there is several parts. So we might divide it first. After the introduction, we might have to know what the method, materials, and tools used in our literature review. So many literature review never provide what kind of method they use in conducting the literature review. As my experience as the editors and also the reviewers, I like to read how this paper is conducted, what is the method, how many materials needed, and what tools he used. So sometimes this method is excluded in a systematic review. It's good if we provide it because maybe some young researcher will follow our work and then they can read, oh, this is the way to do the literature review, something like that, with this kind of method. So we have to provide the method we utilize. Is it a systematic review? How we do the systematic review? Is it bibliometric review or integrated review? We have to provide it in a subsection of method, materials, and tools. Not subsection, the section of method, materials, and tools. And also, I encourage our reader, not only for our journal, but also for other journal, please mention the source of materials you have. So whether it is the type of material like is research article, magazine, book, internet content, or let's say internet or presentation, lecture presentation, something like that. But in systematic review, usually it comes from a research article, but it depends on the purpose of our literature review. Like what I did is, let's say, the smart house, the historical tracing of smart house concept, how it, and then it's not can be how to say, it's not can be restricted only for the research article, but we have to see the company materials, the government, something like that. So the source of materials, we have to provide where can we find it. And what kind of keywords did you use to search for your materials? So for the papers that includes in your literature review, how many is the result? Is it 2,000 papers or maybe only 90 papers? So mention that quantitatively and how you narrow down that result so it can be sharp and can be very relevant in your study. And it is how to say, it is recommended to use to write our use tools, the tools we use in our paper, like the search engine tools and data source, or how the analysis tools, what tools for helping us to analyze this data. So here, the most popular one for let's say analysis helping us to analysis site space or Jane used, and also was viewer. I use this was viewer. And here is some example in our journal. So in his literary review, she mentioned about the tools. So what simulation tools he used, and what is the data source included in his analysis, and so on. So this is the example for bibliometric review. So we may provide what is the keyword, and to make this figure. So the keyword is like this in pandemic architecture, and the results of our search is 4,000 papers, and it's ranged between 2021 till 2022, the range of. And here is the density. Or maybe here we can find which of our research will focus. And after that, we can narrow it down by the relevance. And then if we here are done, it's only 85 papers that should be included in the analysis. After this, maybe we might have to use a different method or technique. Something if we found if this one can answer, can help us to answer our purpose or our research question, and then we can use another method, maybe systematic review or international content analysis, something like that. We can combine that to achieve our purpose. After that, it is different from the case study research or full-length article research. The literature research often provide a subsection that is related, a grouping into certain purpose of the study. So it's often organized to a common relevance, and we can find it in many papers in different journals. The second one is focused on updated data, but do not ignore the outdated source. So sometimes we need to compare with the outdated source, but this is different from if we have different purpose, of course. So I cannot mention it one by one, type by type, something like that. So another thing is that if we write, if we made a little review in each subsection, if we made a paragraph like what we've been taught from maybe elementary school, and then senior high school, and also in our college, one key point per paragraph. Sometimes authors ignore this, but, so I might need to remind us, I mean, not only the audience, but me myself, if we made a paragraph, please focusing in one key point per paragraph. Don't use several key points, which make the paragraph is so lengthy, and our reader will be, it's so frustrating to read that. It's so, how to say, we are very tired to read that one paragraph. So just please provide one key point per paragraph, and each paragraph includes a topic sentence, a supporting evidence from literature, so another scholar, which support this sentence, and then it might include maybe there is some contrasting theory, and it will, how to say, enclose with concluding sentence, which might be linking to the next paragraph. It's like that. So here is the example for, how to say, the structure of the main body of the literature review. So here we can see the introduction, and then BIPV history, BIPV photovoltaic. But in this example, we don't find any method in here. So this is actually like a very systematic review. He used a systematic review, and after that there is he provide in the number 6. He provide the future scope for the IPV and also the conclusion. So it didn't see this. There is a result or discussion. It might be the result and discussion is how to say, it's not hiding. It's put in every sub point of each topic. So it's different from what Jin said, that if in a full article we should provide the result. Sometimes research and discussion is being merged together. So if we found one research and then there is another discussion and one research and another discussion, or we can separate it by result and discussion section, or discussion section plus conclusion section. So for me myself, I'd like to write from each result, and then we have a discussion. Each result we have discussion, and then there is conclusion, which conclude all of discussion that we made in a result and discussion section. But in this example, there is no result and discussion, but there is another example. It's not. There is also example that they have after a systematic review. So after each subsection which talk about certain topic, and it followed by a result of and then discussion, and what is the main finding of his literature review. This is the good one in providing and writing a letter review. And also don't forget, sometimes if we had funding, don't forget the acknowledgement, or some people let's say help us, is also an acknowledgement. And here is the example for the subsection of the literature review. So here there is a topic sentence with orange color, and then there is a supporting evidence in blue color, and there is also as a constructing theory from another researcher, and then we made a concluding sentence link to the next paragraph. So in subsection, we might have to provide some matrix table of our literature which summarize the relevant data that included in our analysis. And also interpreting our research is very important if we provide it by diagram. So it can be, how to say, it can make our reader like, how to say, oh, it's so nice to show it's so nice to show the table not only full full of text. If we saw the table, we can know, this is the way, the most shortest way to provide our works. And then also when we saw figures like illustrating the flow of process and order, it might help the readership to understand our research fastly. And also we can show a complex concept that we might to build in figures, something like that. But as an editor, maybe me and Jean is read a lot about this. Many papers many papers didn't cite all of their figures and table in a body text. Each figures and tables you should explain or you should refer in the body text. Don't miss it. So each of the figures and the table. So like I saw in table 1, it's depicted something like that, and figure 2, it showed us. So each of your figures and tables should be cited or should be referred in the body text. Don't miss it. So this is the example of a review paper with a tables. So he classified a suitable land, available land, and suitable land, and then use feature and classification and criterion. So this kind of table will make a reader to understand our research. So the last part of the literature review structure is conclusion. So in the conclusion, please provide the result of research aim. So what we've been, our promise in our introduction, this is our contribution. This is my aim. So it should be, we should provide the result of our aims. What is the result of our aims? So we should provide this in a conclusion. So many of the authors, they promise different things in the introduction, but in a conclusion we didn't find what is his promise. He promised its aim is like this, but what are they talking about in a conclusion? It's not it's not it's not connected, it's not related. Like this kind of paper is a very high opportunity to be rejected. Maybe for a good a kind of reviewer, they just ask, please revise your conclusion. It's not related to the aim of your research, what you promised in an introduction, something like that. The second is try to summarize the major finding, like what you did in an abstract, but do not use repetition. So what sometimes authors just write an abstract and then we can find it in an introduction. We can find it again in a conclusion. Please provide a different way to express the same result, something like that. So do not use a repetitive word. So this summarize should include your contribution, what you have been promised in the introduction, and also provide the most undeniable data, the most rigorous data that people cannot deny it. And then make your standpoint clearly. And also, we have to be kindly enough to provide, to point out major gaps within the literature review, what you've been doing, what is the flaws and what is the inconsistency, to underline the future work which is a benefit for us and our research community, the students and academicians, the researchers, something like that. And don't forget to provide a concluding remark. Thank you so much.
So thank you, Professor Puteri, for sharing the experience in writing and submitting literature review from the editor and reviewer's perspective. And I'm sure that after this session, all our participants would have a clearer view on their article writing. So thank you very much. Now, let's move on to the Q&A session. So if anyone have questions, just feel free to turn on your mic. If you have a question, you can just turn on your mic or type in the chat box.
Putri.
Oh yeah, Papindo.
Yes. I have one question about the article. If submit with the what's in English? Yeah, review article. If author need to submit or want to submit the review article, what kind of review should we assess? Like sometimes it's different with it is different research article and review article. It's a question. Another thing is about the sometimes I got a paper want to review. It contain the acknowledgement. Still has acknowledgement. So I think it's for the editor to be careful to delete or remove the acknowledgement before send to the reviewer. I think that's the second comment is about for the improvement. So the first question, how should we do if the article come to reviewer? It seems like review article, not the research article. That's my question. Thank you, Putri.
Okay. I have to try to understand what you meaning. So it is. You said that there is an article you have to review. So the paper you have to review, and then it should be a full-length article. And then he provided like a review literature article. Is it something like that? So yeah. Maybe it's just a preliminary study, right? So he just want to publish his preliminary study. So the content of the literature review is much more than the result of his original research. Is something like that? Okay. Um, if it is like that, maybe the editor will, how to say, will handle it and then ask for, maybe as a reviewer, if it is how to say, if it is already how to say, sent to the reviewer, so maybe the reviewer can provide a comment that instead of making a research article, making it a research article which is not, how to say, it's not uh, proper, I mean, it's not suitable for a research article, he might replace it with the review article. So our journal also accept a review article, but it should done very well, which is in a very very good quality, something like that. It's not, sometimes many authors submit not enough, not clear enough, or not rigorous enough data, and we should have to deny it for publication. Is it can answer your question?
The next question is about the structure of review article, because the structure of review article is different than our template.
Yes,
Of course, it's different. So there's no template for review article provided on IRSPSD. So that's why when I got the article, I can drive the author to change based on the template because the template is research article. So I give you, not you, the IRSPSD journal. If this journal allow the paper for review article paper, so give template for review article because it's totally different. If we do not provide the template for review article, so difficult for author to make it like a review article. They try to make their own template. Maybe you can discuss about this, because when I get that like that, it's difficult for me to make the recommendation. So the best way is, as your suggestion, give back to the editor and change the structure like the research article, or make it more deep explanation, give the more elaboration for this article. But the problem is the same, the structure is different. How can this journal provide, because the aim and scope in this journal, if I'm the first author want to submit in IRSPSD, there's not mention about this article except the research review article. So the the potential author will understand the difference between original research article and review article. And I believe, based on my experience, a review article is more comprehensive, give the more reference. I think more than 50 articles to provide for reference for review article. So can the IRSPSD give the, I don't know, like guidance for the research article? Review article, for review article.
How many papers should be included in analysis, something like that?
And the best way is give 1 or 2 paper samples to guide the author. so they can download and check. Oh, this is the research article. This is for review article. I think it's the best way. Thank you, Bu Putri.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pindo, Professor Pindo. Maybe I can get back to the moderator. So I guess I heard Professor Pindo's suggestion, and also Jean, we will try to talk about this in editorial meetings. And yes, we didn't provide the template for research article because research article itself, it's not it cannot be restricted because there is different kind of research article, right? Whether it is a systematic review or it is integrated review or bibliometric review, and maybe we have to restrict how is the length of the paper, while the full length research article maybe it restricted to 18 pages. So for review article, it could be more. And then for the reference, maybe, so yeah, more than 50. It actually, in practice, usually more than 70 or maybe hundreds of paper. But I guess in my thinking that it's not how many papers that you review, it's but is the paper put it in the includes in the article is closely related, something like that. So yes, thank you so much for the suggestion.
Okay, thank you. So if there's no other question, I'd like to announce the end of this conference. And thanks to our distinguished speakers, audience, and our organizers for making this conference possible. So thank you, and I look forward to fruitful discussions and breakthrough insights ahead. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Nice to meet you all, by the way. Putri.
To see you, and thank you for your contribution to our journal. I think maybe Anita is typing.
Oh yeah, there's a question. Yeah, Bu Putri, there's a question. It's us. It's addressed to you, I think.
The question maybe I can answer is about it must be used and notes for IRSPSD submitted article. That is not required, but if you use EndNote, we have a style format for you to download, so maybe it can be more easier. And of course, you can use manually if you already have it. We are not required, as long as you can manage the style of your citations well.
Okay, now there's no other questions, and thanks all of you to attend today's meeting. And that's the end of today's session. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Let's you all.
Thank you.
So much.
Yes.
Thank you for the audience and also the organizer in Fujian University. Thank you so much for inviting. I hope to meet again someday.
Thank you.